Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of our complete set review of Kaladesh. This is where we're going to look at every single card in the set, and we have moved on to the red cards. And no further ado's and all, our Either Touch Renegade is first. It is a red and 2 generic mana for a 1/2 uncommon human rogue. When it enters the battlefield, you get 4 energy counters. Count them, 4. And you may tap, you may pay 2 energy counters to deal 1 damage to target creature. You may tap and pay 8 energy counters, and it deals 6 damage to target player. Now this, we've already hit a build around me uncommon. This is a fantastic grade for energy. This is a great way to use it, and it has a really high upside. We're able to get actually more energy than he himself produces, or twice as much. Or if you're able to blink this creature, it automatically makes enough to deal 6 damage to a player. So that alone is incredibly powerful. So this guy is easily pickable early and playable always, because that ability is fantastic. If you're able to generate more energy, it just gets that much more dangerous. I think this card is great. It's going nowhere near constructed, but as a limited all-star, I think it really shines. Brazen Scourge is next. It's a 2 red and a generic mana for a 3/3 haste creature. That's right, it's an uncommon gremlin, and it's uncommon for a reason, because these stats are pretty pushed. Haste is an incredibly powerful ability in Magic, and if you don't know that, you will certainly learn with a card like this, because it basically just allows you to skip the whole turn of your opponent knows that the creature exists, that the creature can attack next turn, how big it is, what he's going to be able to do with it, what he can do at sorcery speed, and so on and so forth, if he wants to attack or wants to hold back some blockers. None of that matters when you're able to play a guy and turn him sideways, and Brazen Scourge kind of harkens back to the Goblin Ram Gang from Shadowmoor, and that saw a ton of standard play, and it was super awesome. Now it had Wither, which was also really sweet, and this doesn't have anything else other than haste, but let me tell you, our trained Armadons, our 3/3s for 3, have gotten awesome, and this one very well could see constructed play. It is very good and limited. You should basically be playing it if you're in red, because the haste is totally sweet, the stats are fantastic, it's going to be great on the curve, and if you're on the play, this card could do some serious damage. Built to Smash is next. It's 1 red for a common instant. That attacking creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn, and if it's an artifact creature, it gains trample until end of turn. This card's great. We've hit 3 fantastic red cards so far. Don't worry, there's some crappy ones coming. But this one is totally sweet. Now, yes, it does have the problem of attacking creature only, so it's not doable in defense, but you know, you're red. You want to be attacking, you want to be turning guys sideways. This is the card that lets you do that, and if you're attacking with a vehicle or just an artifact creature, not only does it get huge, it gets trample. That's fantastic. So it works amazing with vehicles, so that when you kind of put all in, like all your power into this one thing, and then you go in, and they block with like a 1/1 or a 2/2 or whatever, you're just like, all right, whatever, +3/+3, and trample your face. This card is sweet. It is always playable and limited. It is an easy, pretty early pick or mid pick. It's not something you want to first pick because it's just not worth it, but it is very playable, very good, a fantastic combat trick, and while you do need to be on the play, or rather on the initiative / on the attack, it's still very good. Cathartic Reunion is next. First of all, that artwork. Come on, people. That artwork is sweet. For red and a generic mana, it is a common sorcery that says that as an additional cost, you discard 2 cards and you draw 3 cards. A weird, like, in constructed, fantastic, because it's a dredge enabler. And so, like, Aaron Campbell's, tweets just, Twitter just blew up when this thing got revealed, because, this is amazing in a dredge type scenario. Now, when you're not dealing with dredge and you're just dealing with standard, I mean, there are some delirium things going on, but I'm not sure if this is really the card to kind of get you there. In limited, it's difficult, maybe as a 1-up. If you have things that recur, such as the Opal Chase Racer, I believe the black card that returns when you play an artifact. Now that's a card that you can kind of discard for free, because discarding 2 cards in addition to this, remember, you're not actually drawing cards, you're filtering cards, because the 2 cards you discard plus this one equal the 3 cards that you're going to draw. So in a vacuum, I like it in sealed, because if I get stuck with lands, or I get, if I start flooding out, I'm able to discard 2 and draw 3. That's very powerful stuff, don't get me wrong. In draft, less so, mainly because spending all your time and your mana, discarding cards to draw cards and whatnot, better have an amazing payoff. But really, maybe playable in sealed, probably not in draft, could definitely see some constructed play. This thing was pushed in terms of the right mana cost and the cards it draws, but it depends on the scenario and the context. Up next is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. My God, ladies and gentlemen, a 2 red, 2 generic mana, 4 loyalty mythic planeswalker. She has 4 abilities, only the 3rd time it's ever been done on one face of the card. +1, you exile the top card of your library. You may cast that card, and if you don't, she deals 2 damage to each opponent. You have another +1 to add 2 red mana to your mana pool. You have -3, where she deals 4 damage to target creature, and -7, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player. So, a windmill slam, a first pick, a constructed all-star, arguably one of the better planeswalkers we've really ever seen. Certainly the best Chandra. Like, come on, it's not even close. This is the best Chandra. So, when you come from a world of Chandra Nalar and Chandra Ablaze that I kind of suffered through, if you will, and nowadays you're getting all these super sweet Chandras, well, enjoy it, because this card is amazing and unbelievably sweet. It does all the right things. It's so cool that if you +1 her and you've already played a land and it's a land that you reveal, like, it still deals 2 damage to them. That's amazing. Like, you know, and she protects herself, and she can +1. You can play a 2-drop, you know, after you play her. Like, there's all the things are going right with Chandra. She's incredibly awesome. I'm super excited to see her just dominate Standard, because it's time for another 4 ability planeswalker to see the top of the standings. This card is totally awesome. Chandra's Pyro Helix is next. It's very similar to Twin Bolt, and in fact, it's literally an exact copy of the Dragons of Tarkir common. However, this one's got Chandra added, so it's got that spice. Got that little spice. Either way, they want to put Chandra at the front of the card. It's a red and a generic mana for an instant common that deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. So you take 2 damage, you put it where you want. It's super cool. Arguably a sweeter name, but because Pyro Helix is like a really cool name, and of course Chandra's attached to it, which is sweet because there's Chandra art in it, which is nice. Kind of unnecessary, but the flavor text is sweet. This one's for my mom, this one's for me. That's fantastic. So anyway, as a burn spell, it's good. It's versatile. It kills things. There's not a lot of 1 toughness things that I think we've seen so far, and you know, but regardless, 2 mana for 2 damage is always playable, always good, always pickable. You arguably want better threats than this when you're trying to sort of draft this card, but if there's not an amazing threat that you're able to pick up, then certainly the Pyro Helixes always belong in limited decks and will always be good. Constructed? I don't think so. Now, Combustible Gear Hulk is next. This card, whoo, is 2 red, 4 generic mana. It is a mythic artifact creature that is a construct. It's a 6/6 first strike. Let's just say off the top, card's amazing, all right? Like, in terms of limited bomb fantasticness, totally sweet. Now, easy first pick, Windmill Slam. Now, the next ability this card has really determines whether or not it can actually be in Standard or any other constructed format. When Combustible Gear Hulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards, and if they don't, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then Combustible Gear Hulk deals damage to that player equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards. Now, the question is, you have here is a Punisher mechanic. For those who aren't aware, the Punisher mechanic kind of debuted a long time ago and let your opponent choose an option for you. And usually it was, you know, a good option or a bad option depending on the scenario. And the problem with Punisher cards is that they gave your opponent the choice to do something. And it turns out they always choose to do the thing that doesn't hurt them. So this will essentially let you draw cards when they're low on life. And in constructed, the question for me really is there some sort of, like, you know, is there some sort of Either Works Marvel type deck that allows you to play this and then be able to reveal Imrakuls and Ulamogs and whatever from the top of your deck? That would be totally sweet. Otherwise, you know, if it doesn't revolve around those types of things, I'm not sure if it's good enough. Now, granted, you're only like, and they did the math, like 6% to miss if you're playing this in constructed, you know, in terms of, or honestly just playing in any format, but we're just talking about constructed at the moment. So you're probably going to hit something. Don't get me wrong. The question is it enough? Is it good enough? Because your opponent has the choice. That's usually bad. And if they want to let you draw 3 cards and have a 6/6 guy and somehow deal with it and then kill you afterwards, it doesn't matter if you drew 3 cards. So, but if you had milled 3 cards, you might have killed them. Well, you gave them the choice. That's the problem. So, this is a really interesting card. If it could see play, I wouldn't be incredibly surprised if you're able to abuse things and have really high casting cost cards in your deck and be able to abuse that regardless of the fact that they give them to you, because after game 1, they're probably not going to let you reveal 3 cards and deal them all the damage. So, you know, you kind of have to keep weighing that out. But in limited, it is amazing. First pick, fantastic, always playable, unbelievable. Will pull you into red because this card is really difficult to stop. Demolish is next, and Demolish is bad. It is a red and 3 generic mana for a common sorcery that destroys target artifact or land. It is bad. Don't play it. It's not worth it. I'm trying to think, you know, there's better ways to destroy artifacts, and they're in the set. We'll take a look at them. If you are so very desperate that you cannot answer things like an Aetherworks Marvel or a rare vehicle that is just destroying, like Sky Sovereign or whatever, like if you ain't got nothing else, you got Demolish. But do not play it unless you absolutely must have to, because it's really bad. Faithfull Showdown is next. It is a rare 2 red, 2 generic mana instant. It deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of cards in your hand. You discard all the cards in your hand, and you draw that many cards. Not that good. You have to be in a situation where not only is this the card that you want to play, and this is what you want to do, you want to deal damage to a creature or player with a number of the other cards in your hand, but you also are totally okay discarding the rest of your hand. And if you're dealing like 5 damage for 4 mana, boy, that sounds great, but you literally just got rid of the rest of your hand. Nothing was playable. Everything was bad. I don't think so. So this card, not so great. I mean, you're over here like, okay, there's a scenario where if I'm flooded out, I've got all lands. And when you're already sort of in that scenario, to make it good, it's usually bad. So in a way, I appreciate the card in that it's cool, it's different, it does something that red cards don't normally do, but at the same time, it seems like sort of kind of a giant trap. Now, it feels like, you know, if you're desperate, sure, you would play it because you don't want to lose the game, but at the same time, you're losing every other spell, and I hope you didn't want to draw them or play them again, or they had some amazing recursion ability. Otherwise, you're just out. So I don't really like this one much at all, to be honest. Furious Reprisal is next. It's a red and 3 generic mana for an uncommon sorcery that deals 2 damage to each of 2 target creatures and or players. This card is great. This card deals with 2 problems. It finishes off 2 creatures. It finishes off a creature and hits them in the face. Like, it lets you split the damage as you see fit, and that's fantastic. So, like, this is sometimes a double removal spell, which is amazing for 4 mana. Sometimes it just domes your opponent for 2 and hits something else for 2. That's also fantastic. So note that you can't target the same player twice, but you can certainly target that player and a creature they control. So this card is sweet. It's definitely uncommon for a reason. Play every copy that you get and enjoy it. In standard or anywhere else, nah. Giant Spectacle is next. A red and a generic mana for a common enchantment aura that enchants a creature, and the enchant creature has +2/+1 and has menace. Well, auras kind of suck, because auras put you in a position to get 2 for 1 when your opponent kills that creature that has it on it, or kills the creature in response if that enchantment were to give it something like hexproof. So you have to weigh the fact that if you were to pay a 2 mana for a 2/1 haste menace creature, are you okay if you sort of soul bonded it, if you will, if you remember Avacyn Restored, if you kind of attached it to a creature and said, I have this 2/1 menace haste guy, and he's unblockable as long as this guy gets through. I mean, you know, I'm trying to sort of provide a visual construct of, like, you're attaching this dude to a thing, and when you attack with that thing, it does what you want to do, and whenever this thing dies, everything dies. So while this is enticing, and maybe there's a way that you're able to draft a fast aggro deck, red-green, for example, where this type of effect could be just overwhelming, that your opponent is trying to deal with so many other problems that this just kind of, you know, just kind of tacks on, and it's 2 damage immediately, and it gives a form of evasion, which makes your creatures harder to block. So in that scenario, I could see it being playable, but otherwise, I just don't like these types of auras. I certainly don't like them in sealed, where games are a little bit slower, and honestly, they can either grind you out or they can use one of their answers later on to answer it. And, you know, maybe if you got a lot of flyers, yeah. I want it to work. You know what I'm saying? It's the part where Brad would be like, it's bad, go on. I'm like, no. I want it to work. It's not going to work. It's a card bad. Harness Lightning is going to work. It's a red and generic mana for an uncommon instant that you choose target creature. You then get 3 energy counters, and you may pay any amount of energy. It deals damage to that creature equal to the amount of energy that you paid. That's awesome. This goes directly into any energy type deck, regardless of what color it's paired with. Energy loves this card. This card is one of the best removal spells beyond Die Young. Like, this card is the premier energy-based removal spell of the format. So this card is incredibly good, incredibly playable, always great in ways that Giant Spectacle is not great. The card's fantastic. Now, will it see standard play? Maybe. I could see it because, again, it scales. That's the important part. It's not just 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a creature. It's deal 5 or deal 7, for God's sakes. Like, however much energy you need to pour into this thing, you have the ability to do so, to scale it up and deal with a really big problem. And sometimes that's what happens with red decks, is that they just can't get over something with a huge toughness value. Well, this will let you do that and scale appropriately. Card is fantastic, easily early pickable, if not first pickable, always playable and sealed. Every single copy. Harness Lightning is great. Hijack is here, and Hijack is not quite Hotwire. Now, Hotwire, we had discussed, I believe it was on Magic Mike's, where, you know, wouldn't it be amazing to have a threaten type effect that stole a vehicle and then kind of turned it on and let you attack with it? That'd be amazing, right? Well, this one says Hijack, a 2 red and a generic mana for a common sorcery. You gain control of target artifact or creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. So technically, you can steal a vehicle and you can crew it and you can attack it. You still have to crew it, which just kind of makes me a little sad. However, this is a threaten. This does let you steal one of their creatures. Now, you shouldn't go crazy with the threaten, but you can certainly play one of really easily. If you have some way to sacrifice creatures, I don't know if there's a lot of options really in the set, but if you have any way to sacrifice creatures, this just gets better. If you're playing a very aggressive deck, this card is very good, obviously, because when they finally play the thing that stabilizes the board, you steal it and you smash. So that's fantastic. But it is a common for a reason. It's good. It's not the greatest thing ever, so don't play like 3 copies of it in your seal deck. It's not worth it. But maybe as a one-of, it's great to steal a huge monster bomb that they just played. It's great for a surprise to get rid of their best blocker. And I don't mean an instant speed. I mean, you know, like you sorcery speed it and then you smash with all your team, and that's great. So Hijack is okay, not great. It's better in draft, where you're able to really craft your mana curve and your sort of your angle of attack. You know, with sealed, you get what you get. You know, don't throw a fit. But with draft, you can say, well, okay, I'm playing a super aggressive deck, and what I really want to do is, you know, play Hijack so I can get, you know, into the red zone as much as possible, and I'm okay drawing multiples because that's what I want to do. Sealed, not so much. Incendiary Sabotage is next. A 2 red, 2 generic mana, uncommon instant. As additional cast to cost it, you sacrifice an artifact, and it deals 3 damage to each creature. This is one of the premium uncommons in red. This is as close to about a Wrath of God that you're going to get, certainly at uncommon for red, and it will remove everything that your opponent has, usually, as long as you time it the right way, and is a, I don't know about a bomb. It's pretty close. This card is super, super powerful. And the ability to just at instant speed deal 3 damage to everything. And sometimes when you sacrifice an artifact, you're going to get a bonus off that. Card is super sweet, very good, instant speed, always playable, will destroy your opponent and all of their creatures. Card is fantastic. I don't see it beyond limited play, but in limited, man, this thing is an all-star. Inventor's Apprentice is next, which I think could see constructed play. It's a 1 red, 1/2 uncommon human artificer, because of that word, and it gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact. It is the Curd Ape for artifacts. So as a result, it's powerful. For 1 red, and there's another piece of equipment we'll look at later that automatically attaches to artificers for free, making this thing a 3/5 for 1 mana. But again, we'll talk about that later. Regardless, this creature by itself, just with Thraben Inspector on turn 2 rather, and this attacking as a 2/3, is still powerful, is still very good, and I expect this card to see play in very fast, aggressive decks. And if not, we still got an artifact Curd Ape. That's fantastic. In terms of you playing it in your limited decks, you know, it's kind of, it depends. Usually it's better in draft because you're able to not only draft these, you're able to draft really cheap artifacts, so you can ensure that you have an artifact hit on turn 2. Sealed, it's less good because this is the type of creature that you want on turn 1 always, so you're able to either draft more or be ready for it to be able to play around it, whereas sealed is a slower format, and when you play this guy on turn 1 and be able to follow up with an artifact, he's ridiculous, but you draw him late and he just kind of like plops down there, and maybe he's a 2/3, but he'll do nothing. So, you know, it's exciting where it is exciting, but in sealed is where it is not quite exciting. But I like this guy a lot. Lathnu Hellion is next, a 1 red, 2 generic mana, 4/4 rare Hellion. It has haste and it enters the battlefield. You get 2 energy counters, and at the beginning of your end step, you sacrifice it unless you pay 2 energy counters. Now, the best part about this is that it has haste. Now, we talked about haste earlier, how that's very important, and so there's a huge difference, I think, sort of in design and certainly development sensibilities, where there was probably a world where this didn't have haste. Right? It's a 3 mana 4/4. At the beginning of your end step, you pay the 2 energy counters it gave you, and then next turn you get to attack, and we hope you make more energy counters so it doesn't die. That is, and you'll see if you go back and you look at someone like, you know, the pseudo pushed red cards from the past, you'll see stuff like that where it's like some really weird drawback out of nowhere when it's like, really, it was like that's what was worth it. So when this gets haste, you get to attack for 4, use its energy counters, attack for 8. That's sweet. That is exciting, and that goes on the curve. So this card is very sweet when you're on the aggressive. I still think it's good regardless, because a 4/4 haster for 3 mana is just good times. Like, whether you're in sealed, whether you're in draft, maybe whether you're in constructed, this card is very powerful and needs an answer and gets in hard and fast. This card is sweet. I like Lathnu Hellion. I don't know about bomb rarish, but I think it's certainly, if you're playing the aggressive deck, whether it's the red-white aggressive deck or maybe the red-black aggressive deck, you know, I think this guy is certainly 100% playable in all limited decks that happen to feature red mana. Let's put it that way. Madcap Experiment is a 1 red, 3 generic mana rare sorcery. Here we go. You reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact card. You put that card on the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It then deals damage to you equal to the number of cards revealed this way. Oops. It's like the weirdest kind of polymorph thing sort of ever, kind of ad nauseum-ish. It's weird. But if you get a Platinum Empyrean, which doesn't let your life total change, it actually deals you no damage. That's pretty sweet. You know, if you get a Platinum Angel, that's awesome, but you still have to take the damage. So if they deal with a Platinum Angel, you still lost all that life and or got dealt all that damage. So that's pretty interesting. This is an amazingly cool spell for red. Like, red needs stuff. Like, red is just the weirdest, most like kind of like, they keep saying how kind of like black is one of the most difficult to sort of define and design for and develop for, but man, red just has all these kind of weird, wacky abilities, but you want to make them in a way that they're really interesting, and this is super interesting. Maybe nothing happens with it. Maybe it's just a cool card that you get to have fun with and see how much damage you're going to take. It's certainly not very good in limited. Don't ever play this thing. It will backfire in ways that you have not even understood yet. You know, you'll be like, oh, I'm at 9 life, and you reveal like 8 cards, and then your opponent has a thing to deal you a damage. You know, it's always stuff like that. But Madcap Experiment as a Johnny card, as things to get people excited and thinking and wondering and ways to make it happen, that is great. This is a super cool design. I love it. Madcap Experiment. Do not touch this thing in limited. Maulfist Doorbuster is next. A doorbuster, for God's sake, Wizards. A doorbuster. A red and 3 generic mana for a 4/2 uncommon human warrior that enters the battlefield, giving you 2 energy counters, and when it attacks, you may pay an energy counter, and if you do, target creature can't block this turn. Now, ridiculous name aside, and for God's sakes, the flavor text is knock knock ... too late. Just, you know what, Wizards, it's been a while, but I think there's a little shame in this one. There's a little shame. There's a small amount. However, as a card, very good, very powerful. It's a 4/2. That's the problem. That's your drawback for getting the ability to use an energy counter basically every single turn until you run out of energy, not just the 2 he gives you, but energy from something else in order to make things not block. So that's a very good ability. That's the ability for you to turn off the 2 power plus guy that's definitely going to get in front of this thing. And if you have a trick or removal for the other 2 power plus thing that is going to definitely kill this guy, then you know, then you're in the clear, because this is a powerful effect to not let them block things. It is a high power to mana ratio. It just sucks that it has very low defense. So you got to be aware of that and prepare for that. But this is uncommon for a reason, because this is a powerful effect. If you had 2 or 3 of these things, it could be incredibly disruptive. Not letting a creature able to block is usually one of the things that hinders your opponent the most, because they often rely on that one blocker, whether it's got death touch or whether it has a huge butt or whatever, that it's able to bring in, stop the dudes, and this guy turns that off and as a result, it's a lot more playable than he would be otherwise. It's not as good as it is. It's great in draft in ways that it's not really in sealed, again, because sealed is a little bit slower format, a little bit more attrition-y, where this card doesn't really get to shine as much. Whereas if you're able to play this thing on turn 4, you know, doing 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop this guy, and then turn 5, you're able to make something not block. Like, that's the scenario that you want to be in. So in those scenarios, it's fantastic. Sealed, not so much. Constructed, no way in the world. Pia Nalar is next. There's no Kieren. And Pia Nalar by herself is a red and 2 generic mana for a 2/2 rare legendary human artificer. When Pia Nalar enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. For a red and a generic mana, target artifact creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And for 1 generic mana, you may sacrifice an artifact and target creature can't block this turn. So, if it needs to be said, this card is incredibly powerful. This card is incredibly fantastic. It's easily first pickable because it's 3 mana for 3 power and 3 toughness, and one of those powers and toughnesses flies. The other thing that doesn't fly pumps the thing that does fly. Excuse me, along with all the rest of your artifact creatures. So this card is just like value on top of value. It's good early, it's good late. It's fantastic. Pia and Kira Nalar was fantastic in limited and constructed, and I can definitely see this thing being amazing in limited, possibly constructed. It's just good, like, efficient power, and that's a good Magic card right there. It's got power and toughness equal to the mana cost that you have it. It has abilities that you're able to sink a lot of mana into, and it has really relevant abilities where you're able to sacrifice artifacts and not let their best creatures block, which we just talked about being awesome. And this lets you do it multiple times a turn for 1 generic mana a pop, which is great. Quicksmith Genius is next, a red and 2 generic mana for a 3/2 uncommon human artificer. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. Good guy, on the curve, good rate. I like the ability, super playable, not wowing, not amazing, just good. I like this guy. I think this guy's super good. He's a fine, efficient man. I like him in sealed. I like him in draft on the curve. Going nowhere in constructed. We've been there before. This card's super sweet. Reckless Fireweaver is next. A red and a generic mana for a 1/3 common human artificer. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Reckless Fireweaver deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card is pretty cool. I like this card a lot. Whether it's just, if nothing else, it's good in Pauper. This card is going to be super cool in Pauper. If you don't play Pauper Constructed, you should totally try it out, because it's cards like this that allow commons to be more interesting. You're more interested in cards that come out in new sets because you want to look at commons and what commons can do. And it creates different possibilities that you're able to say, like, well, this common does this weird thing with artifacts. What if I could bounce artifacts or play a bunch of artifacts or whatever? And you can totally do that. So even if this card doesn't end up being good in Pauper, that doesn't matter. The point is, it's exciting in that way. I'm glad that it's here. It's super cool. It's not so good in limited, funnily enough. I think unless you just have, like maybe in draft, if you have a glut of artifacts and you're in the red aggro deck, this thing could help you pay off that. But having 1 power is kind of a detriment. However, being only 2 mana cost is also very good. So every artifact you play thereafter, even if it's an artifact creature, this guy lets you ping him for 1 and then he attacks for 1. It can add up, and it is good in that way, but you really have to draft your deck around it. And in sealed, I just don't see it happening. You're going to have a million artifacts, and even then, like, you'd have to have a ton of artifacts, and you're reaching for this guy. You don't reach for this guy in sealed. Maybe in draft you can work around it, and in Pauper, who knows? I would love to see it happen, though. So, deck builders, let's do this. Come on, baby. Let's do this. All right. Renegade Tactics. 1 red for a common sorcery. Target creature can't block this turn, and draw a card. You know what? This is a fine card. It's okay. It's a card that you'll play in the aggressive decks. It's a card that's not as good in sealed, because there's not a lot of aggression in sealed. There's normally like mid-range to controlling type decks. If you're an aggro deck in sealed, you've better open the nuts. And honestly, this is part of those nuts that you'd have to open to make an aggro deck really work in sealed. But in draft, this guy is great, because this guy lets you really tune your deck that I want to be, hitting this curve and that curve and this curve. And I'm able to use this card to my advantage. I'm able to draw more spells and more creatures that I know are of the right mana cost and of the right, you know, sort of the division of such, that this card makes it worth it. So this card is super, super good in draft, not so good in sealed. I don't see it happening constructed because an effect like this, even if it cantrips, is rarely worth a card slash a mana. So where it's good, and I appreciate those kind of cards. Ruinous Gremlin is next, a 1-red 1/1. It is a common gremlin, and for a red and 2 generic mana, you may sacrifice it to destroy target artifact. Well, it's good. It's okay. So let's look at this, right? So you could play Demolish for 4 mana, or you could play a 1/1 on turn 1, and later, for literally the rest of the game, you could be preventing your opponent from playing their awesome artifact because this guy exists on the table. That's why Demolish sucks, because you have to put in a whopping 4 mana. You're not doing anything really with it. You're not threatening your opponent with it. Whereas this guy, as innocuous as it looks, the card is sweet because at any time you can use it. So your opponent is always aware. As long as you have 3 mana up at instant speed, doesn't say, you know, only at sorcery speed or whatever, which would have been kind of ridiculous anyway. But regardless, the power in this card is the possibility of, you know, you can at any time shatter something that they have. Next up is Salivating Gremlins. For a red and 2 generic mana, it is a common 2/3, and whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. This is a common. That's a little ridiculous, this card. And again, like we talked about with Reckless Fireweaver, like this Reckless Fireweaver and Salivating Gremlins were literally my #1 and #2 top cards for Pauper. This card as a common is huge. One artifact turns it into a 4/3. I mean, like, with trample, like, this is a card that is meant to be turned sideways. This card is perfect for the aggressive decks. And again, we'll kind of go back and we'll say, amazing in draft, not so good in sealed. This is definitely not so good in sealed because this is a card that you really want to be turning, you know, you want to be attacking. You want to make your opponent lose value, at least 2 creatures or a full card in order to deal with just this guy. And they basically will have to. You know, it doesn't take long for this guy to start taking huge chunks out of your opponent's life, and they'll want to stop it as soon as possible. Up next is Skyship Stalker, a 2-red 2 generic mana for a 3/3 rare dragon. It has flying, and it has 3 1-red mana abilities. So for 1 red mana, you may, give it +1/+0 until end of turn, or give it first strike until end of turn, or give it haste until end of turn. Limited bomb. Absolutely huge. Like, it is the card that you want to draw in draft because it's right on the curve and it's super aggressive. You want to draw it in seal because you can pump all your mana into it late, and that's totally fine. It has evasion. It can gain haste out of nowhere. You can deal a ton of damage. This is a bomb limited rare, and it does its job perfectly. It's going to be terrible and constructed, but it doesn't matter. You want to open it in limited, you want to draft it, you want to get it in sealed. This is one of the red cards you want all the time, every time. Next is Spark of Creativity. For 1 red, it is an uncommon sorcery where you choose target creature. You exile the top card of your library. You may then have it deal damage to that creature equal to the exiled card's converted mana cost, and if you don't, you may play that card until end of turn. So I would call this spell best of both worlds because you get the best of both worlds. Like, let's say you're trying to kill their Gear Hulk, right? They have a mythic monster and you're like, okay, sure. And you reveal your Gear Hulk. Well, you don't have to deal all that damage to it. You can say, oh, wait, I'll cast this because it's awesome. Like, it's great anytime you have that type of choice. I mean, just imagine how much more powerful that type of choice is versus the Gear Hulk that lets you draw cards or deal damage to them or whatever. Like, even just so much as I pay 1 red mana and I can do what I want with the top card of my library, just gives you so much more power and control and options than when you let your opponent literally choose anything for you, which is always a bad idea. So this is super cool. Again, I love the design. The designers did a great job at making red cards interesting and red spells interesting and giving red something to do. And the idea that red has to play off the top card of the deck is so sweet. And I really appreciate seeing all these really cool and innovative designs that lets red do something different than just dealing a bunch of damage and getting a bunch of haste and destroying a bunch of lands and or artifacts like it's always done. Next up is Speedway Fanatic. This guy is awesome. 1 red, 1 generic mana for an uncommon 2/1 human pilot. He has haste. And whenever he crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains haste. That's what I'm talking about. Card's sweet. It's on the curve. It's where you want it to be. It's on turn 2. It's sweet. It's awesome with vehicles. If you have any vehicles in your deck, it's totally worth including this card. It's awesome on it's like in the curve in terms of like you want this as your 2-drop. but you also want this guy to make your vehicles awesome later, which he totally does. So he's good coming, he's good going. This card is amazed and limited. Maybe constructed. I've seen some people try to throw him in some decks already. Like, I wouldn't be totally surprised because a 2-mana 2/1 haste is already fine. And then you see like what the ability is. The ability is totally sweet. Possibly. That said, Speedway Fanatic is an all-star unlimited. Play this guy every time. Draft every copy you got. Turn him sideways. Turn your vehicle sideways with him. Guy's awesome. Next up is Spireside Infiltrator, a red and 2 generic mana for a common 3/2 human rogue. When it becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So clearly, you're wanting to crew vehicles with this. You know, you want to turn this guy sideways for free, just like the black 1-drop, in order to get value out of it and not have to put it in harm's way. However, as a 3-mana 3/2, it's already good on the curve. It's already 3 power for 3 mana. And oftentimes what I would find, again, historically, is that you don't get both the peas and the carrots, the chocolate and the peanut butter. Instead, you have to be like, you know, it's a 3-mana like 1/2. And if you tap it, it deals whatever damage. Or it's a 3-mana 2/2, and you're like, oh man, thanks a lot, you know, for that 3-mana 2/2 action. But regardless, you know, this being a 3-mana 3/2 means it's great on the curve, and it's great with vehicles, which means it's usually just great all around. This is a very good red creature. I'm happy to play in limited. I'm happy to draft it. I'm happy to play it in sealed in case it's turning on my vehicles, or it's just hitting on turn 3 and I'm smashing face. Like, it's got a low toughness count, but it still has its upsides. Spontaneous Artist is a 1 red 3 generic mana 3/3 common human rogue, and when it enters the battlefield, you get an energy counter. And you may pay an energy counter to give target creature haste until end of turn. So it's awesome that after you play her, the rest of the game, while she exists and while you have energy counters, your opponent is afraid you're able to play a creature and give it haste. That's super sweet. You can do as much as you want. It's any creature, so like, you know, well, that doesn't really matter per se, but like it allows you to turn on your creatures and give them haste. As we discussed, haste is an incredibly powerful ability. It's not so much that this creature is powerful in and of itself. It's a hill giant with like a marginal ability. It's the fact that every other creature you play from that point is going to be able to be given haste as long as you have at least 1 energy counter, which is pretty easy to get. Next is Start Your Engines, one of my favorite flavor wins of the set. It's a red and 3 generic mana for an uncommon sorcery. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. So it's like Start Your Engines. It's just like, let's just go. It's just doing the checker flag thing, and people are just moving and going like, holy cow. And your opponent is underneath all of that, flattened and dead. This card is super sweet. If you're able to draft any vehicles whatsoever, this card is worth it. But regardless, if you're in the aggro deck, this is the type of card that you want. Yeah, sure, you might not have a vehicle out when you cast it, but if it gives the rest of your team +2/+0, that could be enough. So this is definitely for those people who like to turn cards sideways. May not be good enough in sealed because it's a little slow, but if you got a bunch of vehicles, I think this thing becomes a lot more playable really quickly. In draft, you're able to draft around it and draft with it in mind, which I like a lot. It's not an early pick for me, but it's certainly something that can be a payoff uncommon that you get mid to late pack that really just kicks your deck into high gear. That's what I did there. Territorial Gorger is next. It is a red and 3 generic mana for a 2/2 rare gremlin. It has trample, and whenever you get 1 or more energy, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Now that's not +2/+2 for each energy you got. So like that guy we talked about first, there's 3 mana and you gain 4 energy. This guy doesn't get +8/+8. He gets +2/+2. So you're fighting real hard for a 4 mana 2/2 to hopefully become a 4/4 trampler. Card's kind of bad. Now, if you're playing in a deck that has lots of energy producers, it's okay. I mean, it's better than, you know, almost all of the sort of average red cards that we've been talking about. But to have to kind of bend over backwards just to make it a 4/4 trampler, like we're kind of spoiled these days, and that's not as excited anymore. Like, honestly, had this been a 3/3, I'd have been a lot more interested and excited about it. As a 2/2, I think it's kind of bad. You really need to have enough energy producers to make this guy worth it. And if you do, high five. You did great. Good job drafting. If you're playing it in sealed, I hope you have a whole ton of energy producers, because this is the type of card that can just sit out there and do nothing. Terror of the Fairgrounds is next. A red and a 3 generic mana for a 5/2 common gremlin. We've seen this thing 5 different ways. 4 mana 5/2s are bad. They die to basically everything. By the time they hit on turn 4 and you give them their turn 5 or whatever, it's just not enough. These cards are bad. It's a cute picture though. I like the picture. Picture's cute. Thriving Grubbs is next. It's a red and a generic mana for a common 2/1 gremlin. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters, and when it attacks, you may pay 2 energy counters. And if you do, it gets +1/+1, or you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's a 2 mana that can become a 3/2. Excuse me. So it's aggressive, which is appreciated in red. It doesn't have any other types of abilities, which is kind of rough. It does give you energy counters, which does count for something. But arguably it's good it's good in the curve. It's good where you want it to be. You know, it's not like I'm sort of complaining that it's bad that this kind of turns into a 3/2, but 3/2s die really quickly. So it's good in that you'll have something to do on turn 2. It's nice that it can turn into a 3/2. If you can make it keep going, legitimately could turn into something. I'm not unhappy to play these, but if I have better 2-drops, or if I'm trying to lean further on the right side of my mana cost versus the left side where things are cheaper, I'm not going to hate cutting this, but I certainly would rather take a look at all the energy things I have and make sure that this guy is not a piece of a bigger whole, like the sum is greater than the parts type thing, because this part is okay, but maybe when you look at all the energy cards you have, it's really good. So you really have to equate it in that regard. I think it's going to be much better in draft for able to play on the curve and able to play for energy stuff versus sealed, where you kind of sort of a crapshoot, and when things slow down, this guy gets super bad. So keep that in mind when drafting or playing with this guy. Next is Wayward Giant, a red and 4 generic mana for a 4/5 common giant with menace. Good stats, good abilities. Don't go crazy playing 5-drop pluses, because if you play 2 or 3 of this guy, you're just going to see him in your opening hand, because that's just how Magic works, and it must punish you for doing things that were bad. However, as one of, maybe 2 of, maybe, this is the type of card where I have gone deep on it, and then I've super regretted it, and I've just been like, ugh. Just had to try to play 2 when I shouldn't have, or 3 when I thought I was going to be able to play these things thanks to mana producers or whatever. But overall, it's decent stats. It needs somewhat of an answer. As a 4/5, it's not incredible. It's probably going to kill one of their things while it kills, while they double block and kill one of yours. But with combat tricks, clearly this gets a lot better. And with menace, it usually makes them commit more than they obviously already would, and you can take advantage of that. Next up is Welding Sparks. It is a red and 2 generic mana for a common instant that deals X damage to target creature, where X is 3 plus the number of artifacts you control. As a 3 mana deal 3 damage to a creature, it's good enough by itself. The fact that it gets added bonuses based on artifacts, even better. This is good removal. You're going to play it in draft, play it in sealed. You're going to pick it probably maybe mid is my guess. I don't know if you pick it that early, but it's red removal, so it's arguable that you pick it as soon as you see it. This is going to kill a creature. Killing creatures is always awesome, and as a result, Welding Sparks is awesome. And you know what's awesome? You hanging out with me talking about all the Kaladesh cards. It's going to be awesome. So, up next, we have all of the green cards. I want to thank you guys very much for hanging out with me and talking about all of the cards in Kaladesh. Just wait till we get to the artifacts, because there's like a million of them. But until then, tell me what you guys thought. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things and stuff. Until next time, Magic players, this is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.